I have a very hit or miss relationship with 2D Zelda. Some games captivate me and immerse me in their worlds really quickly. I specifically remember how Link's Awakening took me by surprise and how I fell in love with Koholint Island and its residents. To this day, I love the dungeons and the charm of that small world. Another example would be A Link Between Worlds, which surprised me with the sheer amount of freedom I was given to explore the world. But some others just don't mesh well with me. I try to get into Phantom Hourglass, and I see the appeal of the original Zelda, but it's incredibly difficult to stay interested without a full guide. My point is I end up either really loving these titles or having a hard time even playing them. That being said, I can certainly appreciate how wonderful all of these games are. Hell, I even enjoy Triforce Heroes. I tried to get a couple of my friends into that game in high school. We played it together a couple times on the lunch table, but we never really got into it. And I'm kind of sad to get to play it more, but I digress. With how successful Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have been, I think a new 2D Zelda would be not only great for longtime fans of the series, but also could be a great way to introduce newer fans to the genre of 2D Zelda. Series producer for The Legend of Zelda Eiji Aonuma has said in an interview that Zelda games will be taking the Breath of the Wild approach and moving forward. This means that every new release is forecasted to be open world. That alone tells me that there is little interest in making a new 2D Zelda, as pulling off such a grandiose adventure like Breath of the Wild in a 2D space seems like something Nintendo has no interest in doing. It's also possible that Nintendo has a majority of their Zelda team already working on the next big 3D game. As of now, there are no planned DLCs for Tears of the Kingdom, which leads me to believe that the Zelda team is working on the next game already, even if it's just at the drawing board right now. We will likely see other remakes, potentially a 2D remake, during the wait for the next big 3D Zelda. But let's imagine for a moment what a 2D Zelda game could do for the series. A lot of fans have been asking for a return to the traditional Zelda formula, more linear stories with a heavier focus on puzzles, items, and progression, rather than the open world do-it-yourself exploration. I think a new 2D Zelda could be the potential route in which Nintendo could give us as classic Zelda fans a taste of that classic Zelda gameplay. Sure, it wouldn't be nearly as grandiose as Twilight Princess or Breath of the Wild, but it could be as good, if not better, than some of the older games like Link to the Past or Four Swords. As previously mentioned, if the next Nintendo console comes out in 2024, I think a new 2D Zelda could take advantage of new hardware to bring a bigger, more grand adventure just in a 2D form. Perhaps the game could have dozens of dungeons, each one a little bit more intricate than the last. But I think Nintendo should switch up the formula of 2D Zelda a little bit. Something that I think would really help achieve this would be to give Zelda a bit of the Metroid treatment. Metroid games are famous for their sequence breaks. The ability to do things out of order is extremely satisfying and engaging. Players get to pull off amazing tricks in difficult tasks in the pursuit of getting an item early, which is extremely rewarding to players with extensive knowledge of the game's mechanics. That being said, I don't want a 2D Zelda that is just a Metroid game with a fantasy twist. I want a Zelda game that is distinctly Zelda, but with the added appeal of sequence breaks. Not like Breath of the Wild or Link Between Worlds where they just give you all the tools and say, go get them, bud, the world is yours to explore. But one where they say, hey, you weren't supposed to get the hood shot until way later. Good job. Enjoy this heart container or a secret shortcut to the boss room in the next dungeon. I mean, imagine for a moment you walk into a boss fight armed with bombs that you got by breaking the progression early. Turns out the boss is actually really weak to bombs, but there's nothing in the game that directly tells you this. Maybe there's some obscure detail somewhere in the dungeon before entering the boss room that hints at this weakness. Luckily, you went out of your way to find bombs early, and now you get rewarded by cheesing the boss fight. That's what I love about games like Metroid Dread. You could skate through several of the boss fights just by having the correct items before you normally would. And as I mentioned, it's very rewarding for experienced players. I think 2D Zelda could benefit from systems like this. Bombing a random wall and getting a heart container is already pretty cool. Taking that one-off fun experience and extending it greatly for a satisfying reward after all your hard work would be amazing. I think this could be revolutionary for 2D Zelda, and may entice newer fans of 2D Zelda to play it multiple times and find secrets and more efficient ways to beat dungeons. In addition, I would like to see 2D Zelda with more crafting mechanics akin to like Breath of the Wild. Cooking meals and perhaps crafting upgrades for dungeon items from materials you find would be really cool. It could add a lot of depth to the gameplay. A Link Between Worlds kind of started this with monster parts, but I think it could be elaborated upon greatly. Depending on how Nintendo wants to approach it, I think all of these things I've mentioned so far could be implemented into a new Zelda game. But for a moment, let's take an even crazier approach. Something that I love about A Link Between Worlds is Ravio's shop. From the moment you meet him, you have the option to buy or rent any dungeon item you need and upgrade it further. I love this concept. You can go to any dungeon at any time. It's up to you, and that's what makes it all the more engaging. The only thing I would like to see done differently is how players travel across the world. In A Link Between Worlds, Link can only travel between low rule and high rule via these tiny little cracks in the walls that lead to the different world. I think this idea works well for a 3DS game, but a full-fledged 2D Zelda on the next Switch doesn't need this split world mechanic. Everything should be interly connected. What if a 2D Zelda took the philosophy of the original Zelda from 1986 and gave us a truly open world where we could go anywhere and do anything? We would finally see Miyamoto's vision for the original Zelda come true. Of course, I wouldn't want it to just be the first Zelda all-over game. That game is far too cryptic and basically impossible to beat without a guide or taking notes on everything you've found. If Nintendo is going in the direction of open world everything, I would want to see something similar to the Breath of the Wild, a big, open 2D Hyrule with different areas featuring different biomes, their own quirks, their own challenges to overcome, like dungeons that you can enter at any time, barring you have the correct items to accomplish it. Couple this big open world and with crafting mechanics, and you'd have yourself a truly unique RPG game. I can't think of too many 2D RPGs that let you just go anywhere at any time and do anything at your leisure. To reiterate, I obviously don't want Nintendo to just pump out carbon copies of Breath of the Wild's formula, but just on 2D. Some tweaks would have to be made, which I'm sure the Zelda team could figure out. That being said, we would need a new Switch that could handle the bigger world with sprawling dungeons and really deep mechanics. That would have to be necessary, if you ask me. Regardless of what I mentioned previously, a new Switch can make this game look spectacular. It doesn't matter what it is. Even if it's a remake, even if it's a brand new Zelda game, doesn't matter. A new Switch can make it look great. For example, Octopath Traveler is a game that looks phenomenal on the Switch. I don't think a 2D Zelda needs to be sprite-based, but something about Octopath Traveler and how it handles the color and the style of everything is just super appealing to me. I can't quite put my finger on how specifically it matches my preferences, but it just does it so well. And building off that, there's no reason a new 2D Zelda couldn't have the same graphical polish, if not better, than that of Pikmin 4 or Metroid Prime Remastered. Both of these games look absolutely stunning on the Switch, and I think new hardware could be utilized to make things like fog, mist, water effects, lighting, and a whole new bunch of other visual effects pop in a 2D Zelda. A newer system would have the power to just allow for a bigger game in general. That being said, I would also be happy with a small 6 to 10 hour gameplay type of game. Small games are good too, and I really enjoy them. All in all, I think 2D Zelda is quite special. The games I have played, I've loved. I would say that Link's Awakening is probably one of my favorite Zelda games, a fact that will likely never change. With the new Switch coming, Nintendo has a golden opportunity to showcase what a 2D Zelda could be. Super Mario Bros. Wonder comes to mind when I think of examples of games like this. That game is a great example of what a modern 2D Mario should be. It's an extremely fun game that looks spectacular. I've played it quite a bit over the past few weeks, and I simply adore the game. Now imagine a game like that that does the same impact that Super Mario Bros. Wonder had on Mario, but for Zelda. I think that'd be perfect for the next Zelda game to hold us over until the new 3D adventure. Thank you guys for watching the video. I love Nintendo games. I've been a fan of them ever since I was very young. I actually own every Nintendo console, well, every home console, sorry. And I've made a video like showing that off before, but I digress. I do plan on focusing on Minecraft content for this channel, but I think every once in a while I like to talk about other games that I'm passionate about. What are your thoughts on 2D Zelda? Do you even want a new one? Would you want a remake or something else entirely? I'd love to hear all your wacky ideas that you may have down below. Tell me what your ideal 2D Zelda game would look like. That'd be the real interesting thing. I've given a couple ideas of what I would want, but get specific. I want to hear it because people have such good ideas and they're so interesting. Anyway, if you really like this video, consider hitting like and subscribe. If you especially enjoy my content, want to see it a little bit early, as well as have access to exclusive posts, polls, and eventually an unscripted podcast, consider becoming a member. Thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye.